Thinking has to turn itself into lead sometimes and make a cannonball dive into the swimming pool. I attempt to ask the question whether there is an infinite and a finite in Heidegger's thinking, or whether Weiling itself, as the core of Heideggerian phenomenology, denies this distinction. In Kant, there is the noumenal, and this is identified with the infinite, and phenomenological, which are the things that we encounter directly and which pass away. Um, Anything that comes before us will eventually break down and change form and go away. Um, we do have, of course, the idea of the preservation of matter through the changes, so that you get to the one stuff idea, which raises a difficulty there, which isn't, I believe, considered by Plato and Aristotle. I think from Plato to from out from under Plato's skirts, in this Whitehead sense of Western philosophy, is a footnote to Plato, all the way to Kant, and also from Aristotle to Kant in terms of the syllogistic logic. You see this great continuity of the notion of the distinction between the passing things and the eternal. Uh, the eternal is, or the sempiternal, that which lasts forever, but in time. Um, there's some question of whether the ideas are somehow strictly eternal or sempiternal, as it were, reposing in the black atmosphere, the absolute black of God's um, un unborn thought prior to nature. In other words, nature, which we can identify with birth, um, that which one is born with, and that which comes forward of its own. How is that in Plato and Aristotle? Just simply that anything has attached to its look that it's a kind of thing. So you have a chair, let's say. Yeah, let's go even simpler, because a chair is a product of art, but which raises certain questions. But say a stone, say the thing Socrates names, the hair, the most modest things, as it were, the hair, mud. Um, Later on, Francis Bacon uses chalk as an example, but chalk is already something which is thematized and used in a particular way. But but if you come across chalk in nature, I suppose it would amount to the same thing as mud, hair, or stone. Um, and then we can, the Socrates, before he came to the immature Socrates before he came to his full powers, and the Parmenides, in the discussion with Zeno and Parmenides, somewhat was embarrassed by this question, or at least that's the one reading. Uh, he doesn't want to make a fool of himself by going into the question of whether these simple things have their own idea. But what does it mean to have an idea? Um, that I can take any of these forms, such as stone, and then I can infinitely play them out from this position of either from that nature can constantly be this font where they're always bubbling forth, and stone comes up out of, as it were, out of nothing. Um, the earth is bringing forward lava that becomes stone. The possibility of stones existing uh, uh, for the shows that there's an infinite possibility. There could be infinite stones if time were to go on and on and on. There's always the possibility of stones. Also, in the imagination, we can imagine different kinds of stones. Even we may only know about granite and limestone or whatnot, but we can imagine that there would be other stones. We can draw pictures of stones. We can make symbolized stones. There's infinity comes out of this kind of thing. So in this sense, the presence of infinity is already there in the beginning of the Western thinking with Plato. This awareness, in a way, that's one of the very explosive ideas in Plato. Volcanic ideas is the idea of this infinity out of the idea. This is one um, trajectory of the idea as a possibility, which probably didn't occur to people in the archaic Greek period, in the period when Iliad and Odyssey were being recited by rhapsodes, being sung by rhapsodes. Um, so we still have this in Kant, and this is the meaning of the juxtaposition in Kant of the infinity of the noumenal, because the noumenal is a modified form of the thinking of the eidos, of the genus, however you want to say. I think it's genus in Latin, but genus, um, type. Just to make it clear, this is a question also in taxonomy of what we now call biology, which used to be called natural philosophy. If you study Darwin's titles, his dual titles for his most famous book, you see that in Greek this would have been Genesis ton idon, the genesis of the idea, which in English is called the origin of the species. Species is just another name for idea or genus, or depending on how you use it in your taxonomic scheme. But so there you see the great ambiguity of whether these taxonomic schemes are merely things cast over what we encounter empirically, or whether they're embedded underneath in the things as the direct ideas, and all kinds of various questions along these lines, and how the infinite can always be there. Every time I see a stone, how I could be encountering the infinite in some sense, whether I see that with the senses, whether when I um, uh, come to how is that called in the Catholics call it apprehending. When I apprehend the stone as a stone, is that happening through the senses? Is there this change? Um, so we can represent that in Heidegger, as Heidegger is no longer talking about things. He's no longer talking about ideas. He's just verbally, his language is telling us about beings, not about things, not about and therefore, when we speak about the beings in Heidegger, have we made this attempt to no longer go into what is perhaps only the speculation about the infinite and the finite? So you see that's clear. This is a supreme and simple beginning point that floats over the centuries in the West with respect to the distinction between the thing that passes away, the tree that grows and dies, and perhaps its matter is conserved under the one stuff idea, but as that particular form, or as that quality, as that kind of thing, tree, it ceases to be a tree. And therefore there's this finiteness, but also we see the finite, but also we apparently see um, the infinite because of the ursprung of the what I just went through, the Möglichkeit of that thing, the possibility of it, the dunamis of it, as it were, the dynamic possibility of. And one thinks of Derrida and the deconstruction and the way this has been used in architecture to form different kinds of styles of windows or anything, by breaking it down and recapitulating it in with the super subtle genius of the great architects, which can add new nuances. And so all this, which is rippling through the whole thought of the West, is this uh, to fall away and to be felled by phenomenological hermeneutic phenomenology, which does not go into speculation, but which only stays with the beings.